Alexandra Kryuchkova. Book of Knowledge. Part 1. Playing Another Reality. What does this mean to you? Asked the man who was not. A game, I answered. This is not a game. Raisa Akhmatovna corrected me. People are playing, and we are not. Prologue. You are one of us. I recognized you right away. Even at the airport when you met me with the delegation, Maria, an Italian woman, said in a whisper. What do you mean one of us? I asked. You are a clairvoyant. You communicate with the other world. You have the key from the door. My office mate at my first job did not yet know what idealizations and the space of options were, but due to certain problems, she went to a clairvoyant, taking with her the maximum number of photos of all her loved ones and not so, in order to understand who was who. The next morning I waited with interest for the story about the results of her campaign. Marina gave me a strange look, closed the door to the room and said solemnly, "You have a pillar." I remained silent, waiting for the continuation. The clairvoyant looked through the photos, said that you are not tall at all, but very tall, because you have some kind of pillar of energy or something else, coming out from your head. Sorry, I don't remember exactly, but she sees it, Marina said in a conspiratorial tone, looking for something above my head, but obviously to no avail. I see, the stone flower does not come out, I said. Oh, if I were a clairvoyant, I would be the happiest person in the world, I would see everything, she said. I remained silent. I don't like arguing with people. Many years ago I came to Malta. That day an excursion was planned somewhere. I walked down the hotel stairs. The Russian group had already gathered in the hall around one of our tourists, who was talking very loudly. Suddenly a woman noticed me and shouted, "Do you see? Look at her." Everyone followed her advice, but I got afraid that something was wrong with me. I examined myself from head to toe, and everything in my appearance seemed to be human. Body, dress, shoes, bag. I approached the group and was about to ask what her scream meant, when the woman took my hand and, meaningfully looking at those around, said, "Don't you see, there is a glow above her head." Next was Rome. They told me that I was going to the shareholders' meeting. I did not know what it was, the meeting of shareholders. It turns out that this is when people start drinking heavily already at the airport of their hometown A, an hour before the plane departs for city B, and stop drinking on the way back at the same airport in their city A after the plane lands from city B. One of the evenings, playing the shareholders' meeting game, we went to the central square of the city, where fortune tellers, palmists and astrologers gathered and, for a small fee, offered to tell everything that had happened and not. Everyone wanted entertainment, but due to the two trivial fates of my colleagues they decided to use me as a lie detector. As soon as the fortune teller looked at my palm, she exclaimed, "Wow, you were a spellcaster. I see a series of books not now, later." The fortune teller talked for a long time about my past, then about my present and said in the conclusion, "You yourself know what will happen to you. Why did you come to me?" A few years later I ended up in India. One comes across palmists and astrologers at almost every turn there. Moreover, some of them, a little luckier for some reason, are on duty around the clock in hotel lobbies in the hope that at least someone wants to know the truth. However, judging by the sad expression on their faces, not many people want to know it. Returning to the hotel from another excursion to the temples, I approached the astrologer on the duty and held out of my palm to him. "You know everything yourself, and not only about yourself. Are you here to check how well I see? You are a spellcaster. You will have a whole series of books not now, later, and you will become famous. You have been writing a lot and for a long time, few people write as much as you, and even fewer write as deeply. You are an ocean. Nobody can contain you. They are not enough for your depth. People sit on the shore, look at the ocean and admire the waves. Some swim along the shore, but are afraid to swim far, and no one, not even those who try, can sink to the very bottom to know what is there. And there is a completely different world, another reality. You belong to another reality since childhood. You had no childhood, right? You were born to be the sun, but you became the moon. Sometimes the sun awakens in you as your nature. You are drawn to it in order to become it. But the absence of childhood has already forever put the stamp of the moon on your subconscious, not allowing you to be the sun. You are torn between communicating with people and being a hermit. You would like to leave for a monastery. At the same time, sometimes you explode and burn like the sun, warming those around you and illuminating their path. You are a star. Do you see the star sign? In a few years, you will either die or be able to change your life completely, starting from your place of work, field of activity, environment and family, and ending with the country of residence. Look here. He pointed to the fork of the fate line. Up to a certain point, the two branches diverged in different directions, but suddenly broke off on the same segment. Exactly in the middle of the gap, a third line appeared and continued down to the wrist. Whichever path you follow out of the two possible ones before the age I told you and where both of these lines suddenly break off, you must step on your final and unique path or die. That Saturday evening in February, I was standing in an underground passage next to a bookshop. I felt bad about what I saw in my near future. In the flow of people rushing to the metro entrance, I noticed an old nun. For some reason, I already knew that she would definitely come up to me and start talking morals, but I was wrong. She came up and smiled. You feel bad because you see, but God loves you, you have a golden crown over your head. There is a chapel nearby, in the forest, take the trolley bus and go 2 stops. Today is Saturday of Parents, light 2 candles for the repose of yours, you must save yourself for the light. Having said this, the nun disappeared into the crowd. I did not know that there was a chapel in the forest. I knew that there was a maniac there. For several years, he has been killing those who, apparently, were looking for the chapel in the forest. I wonder if there was someone who was looking for the maniac who was looking for those who were looking for the chapel. Having thought about that, for some reason, I obediently drove 2 stops on the trolley bus, went out into the street and began asking rare passers-by if they knew how to find the chapel in the forest. It was very dark and snowing. Passers-by shied away from me, as if I was asking how to find the book I needed in the library of the universe. Several paths led into the forest. I followed one of them. Darkness, snow, silence, no one around, deaf forest. I walked for a long time, a very long time, and that nun began to seem to me just a figment of my imagination, when suddenly a light started flickering somewhere in the distance.